Yeah, let's do this. What I'm trying to say is this. I appreciate you being here. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it now. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Look, it's 6:30 in the morning. This is the 649th day I've done this. You think it would get boring or monotonous or like, oh, I don't really feel like doing it today. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't. It does not get boring. It does not get monotonous. It does not get anything. It just gets cooler and cooler. And I very much appreciate that. You know, doing the same thing over and over. That's actually my enemy. My worst enemy is doing the same thing over and over and over. You know, I need the spice of life, and that's what these books give me. So to be able to present that, to present this new content every day is, it's like the bright spot. It's the bright spot of my day. It's the bright spot of my day at 6:30 in the morning. And then it's like, oh, man, what do I do? I yearn for the day. I yearn for the day in which I can learn and teach all day to millions and millions of people. That's what I yearn for. So I appreciate you being here right now on this third day of January 2019. And this is my grandmother's 90th birthday. Happy birthday, Nammy. Mwah. Well, she will not watch this, but I will call her later today and wish her a happy birthday. In the event somehow that she sees this video, which she will not. Happy birthday, Nammy. I love you. 90 years old. 90 years old. My grandfather is 89, and they still go after it. I would say up until, I don't know, a year or two ago, and maybe even to this day, my grandfather goes out in the woods and chops wood. So actually, that's a great segue to today's content, which deals with the great outdoors. All right, let's rock and roll with AMX Books. 649. 1, 2, 3. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the Spaniard Show. This is the Spaniard, and this is AMX Books 649, January 3rd, 2019. Happy birthday to my grandmother, 90 years old. She will not listen to this episode, but Nam, I love you. Gracie and Rocky, your grandmother is 90 years old today, January 3rd, 2019. Let's dive into the book Meat Eater by Steve Rinella. You know, my wife just got me his new cookbook, Wild Game Cookbook, and I was reading it last night, and I'm so into this stuff. I'm so into learning, really. And one of the things that I love about learning, about reading, about watching documentaries, about just expanding my mind is these new things and places that you come across that are like completely awe-inspiring. One of those things is the Missouri Breaks, okay? Another one of those things is Sequoia National Park. I never knew that there was a national park called Sequoia National Park. I never knew what it looked like. Then I was watching a documentary on Netflix or Prime called National Parks Adventure, and I learned about it, and it's absolutely awe-inspiring, the scenery that is in these national parks and the history of the national parks. It's a fascinating part of American history. One of those places that I learned about by way of this book, by way of Steve Rinella, is the Missouri Breaks. Okay, the Missouri Breaks is in north central Montana, and it's the epitome, in his words, I've never been there, it's the epitome of the American frontier. And if you've seen, I'm going to give you a great reference. And my hope when I give you these references is that A, you either read the book, or B, you watch the movie or documentary, or C, you do a little bit of research on your own and maybe do some Googling. But there is a movie called Jeremiah Johnson. And I remember growing up, my dad would always say, my dad loved Clint Eastwood, and my dad loves Jeremiah Johnson. And I remember hearing about this movie, and I never watched it. And then I'm flipping through Prime or Netflix, whatever it was, and I saw it, and I thought, wow. And then one Friday night, a couple weeks ago, I watched Jeremiah Johnson. In the midst of all of this, I read in the book, in Steve Rinella's book, the impact that Jeremiah Johnson had on his life. Now, Jeremiah Johnson is a movie, but he was a veteran of the Mexican-American War. It takes place in the 1840s. Robert Redford plays Jeremiah Johnson. The movie was made in 1972. Rinella saw it and loved it. Okay, so he saw it and loved it when he was in junior high or middle school. When he was a young kid, he saw this movie. About the movie, he says this, quote, "Hunters were supposed to head west. They existed for the purpose of heading west, and I was glad that Jeremiah Johnson had taken the time to offer hints about where I should go. Once I'd identified the wildest corner of the Wild West, the idea of it bounced around in my head like a fly that's trapped in your car." So he had this, part of this show, I want to inspire you, right? I want to give you energy. One of the things I love so much about On It, is in Aubrey Marcus, and the whole thing that they represent is just this zeal and zest for life, actually living, having energy, taking care of your mind and your body, exploring, experiencing the world. That's why I appreciate following Bear Grylls so much. All The Rock, Kevin Hart, they go out and they do it, right? That's what I want to kind of kick your butt and continue to kick my butt in gear to do that. So Ranella saw this and was exposed to this at a young age, and he never lost it. Look, he lives a pretty darn cool life. He writes books, travels around the world, hunts, eats some cool, interesting food, spends time with all these interesting native indigenous cultures. He does a lot of cool stuff, but guess what? He earned it. Nobody gave it to him. He earned it. He saw what he wanted, and he went after it. He talks about in the book a trip he took out west around 96. He had one semester left in college. He talks about this idea of the real world being bestowed upon him in the near future. And it makes you smile, because if you went to college, or if you go to college, you remember that part. You think you know. I got my first job. I bought my car. I got a paycheck. I got insurance. Reality is you don't know squat. So Ranella was at this point where he was about to start knowing something about life. He takes a trip out west with his brothers to the Missouri Breaks, and he talks about the marvel and the wonder of the scenery. He says this, quote, "I couldn't help but marvel at the extent of it all. Driving around the West, I was like an illiterate man staring into a book. He doesn't understand what exactly he's seeing, but he damn sure knows it's important." How about that analogy? Like an illiterate man staring at a book. He doesn't understand what exactly he's seeing, but he damn sure knows it's important. I've had limited experience out west. I've been to Colorado. It's absolutely beautiful. I've been to California. I've been out west. I haven't been to national parks, and it's one of the things, as my kids grow, I want to experience as a family, spending time in these national parks. Ranella talks about all of this stuff, and by way of me talking about all this stuff, I really actually want to, in fact, at least sit down and go to, I think it's on Prime, go down and watch National Parks Adventure, do a little bit of research, do some Googling of Sequoia National Park. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is Ranella's curiosity and adventure. How cool is this? So he talks about curiosity and adventure, and he says, quote, "They tend to override caution." How cool, how funny, how interesting is that? The curiosity and adventure tend to override caution. He's talking about a canoe trip with his brother. Now, this part struck me, right? Because I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I watch their curiosity and adventure, and I watch it oftentimes override caution. It's in our DNA, right? It's native to us. It's part of our being. Whether it's, he talks about the frontiersman, the mountain man. Our point is to go west. It's to explore. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk one time and say something to the effect that if the cavemen never had curiosity and wonder, if they never ventured out of the cave, you and I would still be living in caves. I wouldn't be here sitting talking to you via Facebook Live and YouTube and Spaniard Show and iTunes, etc., if we wouldn't have had that curiosity and wonder. But it gets trampled down. Not for Ranella, not for me, and not for you. He says this about a trip he took with his brother, quote, "The allure of seeing what's ahead, just for its own sake, cannot be overstated in any discussion about hunting. Anthropologists have always debated the forces that drove nomadic hunters to push themselves around the world. Many human movements can only be described as curiosity-infused wanderlust." So I can see it in parenthood. Gracie and Rocky are pushing their limits in every way. It's in our DNA, and it's fascinating to see the manifestation of this curiosity and wonder that is present in my 5-year-old and my 2-year-old since the days they were born. To people like Steve Ranella, to people like James Muir, to people like John Muir, to people, all of these people who go out and explore the world. Let's get after it, folks. This has been AMXbooks 649, studying the book Meat Eater. We'll be capping off the book Meat Eater by Stephen Ranella tomorrow, and then starting American Wife. Incredible book. So much valuable insight there. I encourage you to Continue tuning in daily, Monday through Friday, to AMXbooks. Catch AMX Kids on Tuesdays, AMX Talks on Thursdays, AMX Weekly on Saturday. The Spaniard Show is your one-stop shop for lifelong learning. 7 episodes a week. That's one for each day of the week. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're using. Check us out on youtube.com/Charlie Spaniard. Live streaming every morning at facebook.com/Charlie Spaniard. And if you'd like to help to support the show for as little as $1 a month, visit patreon.com. I'll see you tomorrow. Hi, Ariane Gonzalez. Dennis Maney, isn't that the truth? So Dennis Maney says, the older I get, the more I realize how little I know. And here's the thing, Dennis. The more that you learn, the more you're going to realize how little you know. Because here's the thing. Here's exactly how it happens. And I messed up his name. It's John Muir. I wish I wouldn't have messed that up. Oh. John Muir. Yeah, John Muir, not James Muir. So here's how it works. Here's how this idea of the older you get, how little you know, / the more you learn, the less you know. So I'm watching, someone says, awesome documentary called National Parks Adventure. So I say, okay, cool. I'm going to watch National Parks Adventure. And then I watch National Parks Adventure. And then you realize the history of the National Parks Adventure. And I get it mixed up. I feel like an idiot. FDR? It was FDR? FDR. FDR is the National Parks Dread, is that correct? Not Teddy Roosevelt, but FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But anyhow, then you learn the history of the national parks. And then you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. And then you learn the actual national parks. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. And then you learn about Sequoia. And then you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. And then you learn about Yellowstone. And you learn about the states that it touches. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And then it's just like, holy cow, do I know anything? And that's what it's all about, folks. It's about just continuing to learn. I'll be back tomorrow morning with AMXbooks. Wow, that's pretty cool. 650, wrapping up media. I'll see you. Remember, YouTube, Facebook, Spaniard Show on iTunes, patreon.com/Charlie Spaniard. So many ways to help support the show. I'll see you tomorrow.